What if the thing holding you back is not your systems? I can't believe I'm saying that because I'm the systems guy. What if it's not your marketing? What if it's you? And today's interview is very special. The guest that we just spent 1 hour interviewing and getting his knowledge and experience on chiropractic has had some of the most influential and impactful mentors in the space of our profession. His name is Dr. Stu Bittman. And in today's podcast, we'll talk about the missing ingredient. You guys will love it. I know you would watch it and you will think, wow, I need to make notes on this podcast. So now let's get back to the show. Ladies and gents, I'm very excited for today's guests. And the reason why I say very excited for today's guest is because I tend to put myself in the listener's shoes from the PracticePeak podcast, where I learn as much as you guys watching and listening to this. And today's guest, I someone with heaps and heaps of knowledge and experience, Dr. Stu Bittman. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm really
Lots of wisdom and experience just generally means I'm old, but thank you. I appreciate it.
wiser than us. And I actually, Stu, thank you so much for giving up your time, by the way. I know the UK audience and hopefully people from outside UK will love what we have to share. But I tend to start with, you said this just before we start recording, with the end goal in mind. And I'm curious to understand more about you as a person, even before you became a chiropractor. Is that okay to share? Let's say an interesting age for me to psychoanalyze is maybe between that 7 and 15 years of age.
Oh my, it was so long ago. Probably nothing very exciting to report. I grew up in New York City, uh, middle class, kind of nondescript. Had a happy childhood. I know that's probably a rare thing these days. I have very loving, supportive parents. And I didn't know. I think at 7 I wanted to be a bus driver. Just to give you my lofty plans, but somewhere along the way I actually wanted to become a medical doctor. So actually now that I'm, thank you,
Now we're thinking about it, hey?
I'm dusting off the file. Apparently, like maybe even before I was 7. I'm hoping it was before I was 7. The neighbors were a little worried about me because my favorite toy was a baby carriage and a doll that I used to take care of. So apparently, becoming a healer or a nurturer was always in my cards. A little later, I was planning to become a medical doctor, and second semester of organic chemistry took care of that
As
for
in,
me.
as in, you
Lesson.
really didn't like it?
As in, I was studying organic chemistry in a different way. Let's say I was personally ingesting all the things and seeing how my body dealt with the chemistry thereof, rather than study for exams. So even though I was a tremendous student, in fact, I was the valedictorian in my chiropractic class. Second year of college, did not devote a lot of time to studying, so I failed organic chemistry too. Took it again as a senior and got an A when I actually took the class. But anyway, that kind of killed my GPA. That whole semester killed my GPA. So I think it was innate's way of reminding me that medicine was not what I was destined for. But I know that was all over the place, but there you go.
No, I think this is, I honestly think when we think of leaders and we think of people that have impacted our profession and just genuinely amazing people in the world, I think those like first few years of your, even before you become a chiropractor, have some lessons hidden in them. Whether that's curiosity for the human body or whether it's curiosity about, I don't know, organic biochemistry, whatever it is, I actually think it sometimes tells the story more than just talking about when you became a
Interesting.
chiropractor. And then what happened? So at what point do you have a decision that chiropractic is for me?
Wow. Well, I know my dad always went to see a chiropractor when his back went out. So that was obviously was my idea of chiropractic. I didn't really have a positive or negative viewpoint on it, but it just sort of disappeared from my life. And I hurt myself on the job working at Harrah's Tahoe, which is a casino here in Lake Tahoe. Um, yes, I used my I used my neurology and biology degree for to service slot machines and sell change and pay off jackpots and stuff for a few years. But I hurt my back and I started to go to a chiropractor that my wife knew from because she was dealing poker and he was a poker player. In fact, he was a more serious poker player than he was a chiropractor, but he was a good adjuster and he started working on me and I was impressed. I was impressed mostly because of the results and how he seemed to know exactly where I was hurting and stuff like that. So I didn't have big plans for my life and he suggested, why don't you go to chiropractic school
And how old are you at that
and
point?
work with me? 29?
Also, you're a little
No,
bit
no, no,
like,
no, 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 no. Sorry, sorry. I lost a few years there. Probably like 25.
okay, a little bit younger than I thought.
I graduated from college, yeah, in 73. I moved to Tahoe in 79. I started chiropractic school in 82. So, yes, I was 26.
Got you.
Started right around my 26th birthday. So, yeah.
And what does life look like after graduation? First job, first practice, impression of the
Well, I
profession.
mean, the plan was to go back to Tahoe and work with this guy who gave me the idea, but apparently in the interim, in the years I was in school, his practice pretty much tanked. He was heavily insurance based, and insurance kind of went away. He was actually very invested in the casinos insurance. And most of his clientele were casino employees,
Hmm.
which at one time was like, paid 100%. And so everybody was talking about, I don't know, this might be a lost acronym, but the big thing then was NOOPE, no out of pocket expense. So we used to compete with each other in the yellow pages. And everybody advertised no out-of-pocket expense because the insurance was, ridiculously good. But of course, since too many chiropractors took advantage of that, I think it went away. So by the time I got out of school, his practice had really gone down to nothing. And of course, I made a wise business move and bought it at the point that it was down to next to nothing. And anyway, I've made better choices since then. But but
That's interesting.
but I bought that practice, and I think for about a year, the biggest day I had was about 19 people, I think.
Wow.
Um,
But can I just double click on this? Can I just check something?
yes, yes,
So
yes, yes.
for the people that don't know the early stage of your career, this is you buying the practice without any experience in being a chiropractor for a while, or you were practicing for a while and then you went to
I
buy?
was hanging out with him for 2 or 3 months, but didn't have much experience as a chiropractor. I mean, other than clinic and what I learned from him and what I learned from him in a kind of reverse way, like the things I knew I didn't want to do. Um, so yeah, I mean, I learned quite a bit from him, but it was a lot of on-the-job training for sure.
Wow.
And I learned, and I did what I learned in school, and however, I didn't feel good about it. In fact, I remember now that when new people were scheduled, I was scared. I didn't know what to do or say. I mean, I knew what to do or say according to what I learned in school, but somehow I knew there was something big missing. And I was a tremendous student, but nobody seemed to care what the classic triad of Whipple's disease was, or any of this stuff. Yeah, it was about 3 years after I started that practice that I discovered actually what chiropractic is,
Let's talk
in
about
my
that.
opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is the bread and butter of what we do and why we do it, which is let's have some level of impact on the humanity through chiropractic, and you do a phenomenal job in spreading the message. But what happens in your life for you to say, I discovered what chiropractic is, in your opinion?
I was talked into going to a Parker seminar. Parker seminar was the seminar back then. It used to be like 6 or 7 times a year. Um, And I think the first one I went to, there was about 8,000 people there.
8,000
I
chiropractors?
still believe it was the biggest event in chiropractic history, though I'm not sure. It was like the 50th anniversary
Wow.
of the Parker seminars. And yeah, in Las Vegas, it was wild. And it was so wild that energetically I got a lot out of it. Content wise, not a thing. I couldn't really understand Jim Parker's Texas accent. He spoke for like 3 or 4 hours, and I would get every fifth word, and it didn't, every fifth word didn't resonate with me. And then well, so I'm getting to the key moment. I went into this room because everybody was laughing and there was a lot of energy, and it turned out to be Sigafus.
Wow.
And for the first session, I was laughing too because he was just being funny. Then after the break, he decided to start talking about chiropractic. And he said something about how we pad our fees because we justify our fees in various ways and do physical therapy and stuff like that because we don't have faith in the principle and we don't have faith in chiropractic and the body can heal any disease known to man. And he's saying all these things. And I'm thinking this guy is absolutely out of his mind. And as soon as a few other people got up to leave the room, I joined them. And there was like a whole parade of people back then, which was one of the things I always loved about Sigafus later on when I came to know him and love him, and the fact that he didn't care how many people walked out. He didn't care, what venue he was speaking in. He delivered the goods, whether you liked it or not, and I did not like it. He in fact, he insulted physical therapy modalities, and I had just leased what I thought was the secret of health and secret of life, which was a combination ultrasound, high voltage galvanic machine. Right. And so he's like insulting that, and I'm out of here. Right. So I, I, Parker in those days had like 16 things going on at once, 16 different choices you had of sessions to go to. So I found something that was a lot more copacetic for me. Didn't change a thing, didn't, but I went home and I had like 4 new patients on Monday, and that was like the equivalent of a good month for me back then. So I'm like, what's going on here? And I had really no way to explain it then.
And you
But about
still
a year
remember that so
later,
well. That's
I
amazing.
remember this very well. I've told this story before.
Gotcha.
So, it's like the memories you get from seeing pictures and stuff. You don't really remember, but um, I remembered the feeling because I remembered telling myself, well, I don't understand any of this and I think they're all crazy, but wouldn't it be nice to have this level of certainty and passion that everybody here seems to have? Right.
Mm.
So I filed that away. And then a year went by, and again, not much changed. It got better at first, but since I didn't change anything, nothing changed. And then I said, well, I could use 4 new patients on Monday again. So I decided to go back to Parker. And this time, I don't know, I deciphered Parker's accent. Um, I went back to Sigafoos. Well, actually, first I went to see this guy, Dean Black, who I think passed away. He used to teach at Parker. He was a PhD. He was a tremendous, I think it was the first talk I ever heard on quantum physics.
Interesting.
And he's talking about how the DD's postulates are being proven, are being, shown by the new science. And he starts talking about quantum physics, and he starts talking about soliton waves. And I'm not going to get into it, but he conjectures that the nerve impulse is a soliton wave, and like a laser is a soliton wave, but if you deform the housing for the light, it just immediately becomes regular dispersed light again. But when the structural housing is intact, it'll travel 10,000 kilometers into space and cut through steel. So he says, well, there's evidence that the nerve impulse is a soliton wave because it doesn't lose any energy along its length. And this is pretty technical, but he says, well, what would happen if you deformed the structural housing for the nerve? Well, then it wouldn't be able to, it would dissipate energy along its route. He says, well, maybe that's what's going on, with the spine. And I'm hearing this and I'm like crying. And he's probably, well, he's passed on, but to his grave, he probably carried the memory of this guy in the front row of his dry talk crying away. But what happened to me was everything I believed, all the classical science that was my foundation and that I was very good at, was all of a sudden proven to be, excuse the expression, bull schmutz. If I
We
say
can
that's a
swear, it's okay.
Jewish word. And it was a weird feeling because now I had no foundation. So I just felt like I was floating, not in a good way. You know,
Interesting.
it was a big thing. But fortunately, I was at a chiropractic seminar, and then I floated back into, John DeMartini's room and Jim Sigafus's room again, and they started to fill what I recognized then as a tremendous hole that I always had in my chest for the truth.
Wow. What a
But it was
powerful.
weird that the soliton wave is really the moment that changed things for me. It was like he needed to get to my heart through my left brain because that's how I was processing things then. So he was the perfect guy for the
And
job. So,
that's amazing. And if you really think about, I'm a big believer in tertiary and secondary, tertiary, whatever effect you're thinking about, is my brain is going there. The impact you've had in hundreds and thousands of people's lives because something clicked in that room.
mm.
How amazing is that? You could have maybe gone back and be a bus driver, and I'm so happy that you didn't.
Thank you. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Been a
So,
different kind, been a different kind of bus driver, taking a lot of people on the bus over the bridge to wholeness and health.
yeah,
So yes.
yeah, and that's actually really inspiring, hopefully, for a lot of chiropractors that because you know what it's like, the younger the population is, the more uncertainty there seems to be in the truth. And it becomes more diluted and layered with whatever it is, technologies, softwares, AI, lack of connection to other human beings. And I'm just curious, you were
Mm.
fortunate enough and you created your luck to put yourself in a position to be close to Jim Sigafus for what, 15 years? Like probably more than a decade.
Till he passed, yeah.
Wow. He was a legend, but I think I might be wrong, but I think chiropractors navigate with things very differently nowadays. And I'm just curious, based on what you know about him and you know about the world, what philosophy holds true now and what needs updating in the world of chiropractic?
Like it's funny you say that. I just hear his voice really clearly saying, instead of changing chiropractic to suit you, how about changing you to suit chiropractic? That was his thing. I don't think the philosophy's changed at all. I don't know if anything needs updating. I just think we've always had, as a profession, we've always been ashamed of it. I don't know how else to say it.
Mm. Well,
Um,
I
Go ahead.
have. I'm just thinking. We have a team. I have six chiropractors here in my practice, and sometimes I will play an exercise. And by the way, by all means, I'm not the best chiropractor in the world, and
Sure you are.
and when I said to the team, guys, can we define chiropractic in one sentence? The definition varied seven times, six times in the same room. And sometimes we're just not ready to receive it. Sometimes we didn't have the moment you had in that room where it really got you to question things. How would you, what message would you like to pass to the youngsters that don't know how to define chiropractic for themselves? Or what advice would you give them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, part of, again, Sigafus's quote about changing you is, yeah, I mean, first of all, I think we have to start questioning the idea that certainty comes from information, comes from what we learn in school, comes from outside in. Certainty does not come from the outside in. A lot of people have found out things that we thought we were certain about from the outside in that have gone away or have changed as they do. But there are things that don't change. like
Should
the
we talk about
truth.
some of those things? Yeah, should we talk about some of those things? I'm a big believer in um, first principles thinking, breaking down a concept that is so fundamentally true that it can no further be questioned beyond that point. But it's very difficult to develop that mental model for oneself. And I don't know how to help people do that.
Hmm.
I don't know if they can be helped.
Yeah, I think, yeah, well, that's that you put it very well. It's very, very difficult to form a mental model, so maybe we need to go to a different organ.
So what are we talking about here?
Well, I'm a big heart guy. I I think the heart is in many ways more of the portal for innate intelligence. I think innate speaks more through our heart. I think our heart only knows the truth. I think our heart only knows love. Don't, listing some of the things that don't change. I think our heart only knows joy and peace and wholeness and abundance. I think our mind has learned a bunch of other things. And we, most of, as a society, as a culture, as a people, we tend to rely more on this information than on this information. So I think that's one of the key things that changed for me in my shift and what I've seen in a lot of other chiropractors. Um, they find a different source of certainty. And yes, it's hard, only because we're so used to relying on what this tells us. But I know I've said this many times in the past. I don't think my spleen has ever not had my back. I don't think my heart has ever, abandoned me or sabotaged me. My head, on the other hand, is a daily occurrence. So again, for some reason, even though this is an amazing thing, it's an amazing, receiving device, it's an amazing computer, but garbage in, garbage out. So,
Garbage in, garbage out.
so yes, I think one of the missing things in chiropractic is heart. In fact, there's no mention of the heart in the 33 principles at all. There's only one mention of the brain, so we shouldn't get too crazy here. But one to nothing is ridiculous, especially with what researchers are finding now about the heart. Things like heart math. They have found, for one thing, that the brain gets a lot more information from the heart than vice versa.
Yeah, yeah.
That there's like 100 times more information, nerve information going from heart to brain than brain to heart. The heart's level of coherence, the heart's heart rate variability that a lot of chiropractors are starting to measure, which I think is very cool, is affects the entire body. The whole body entrains to the heart. And so what that really means on a practical level is when you and I are in a state of joy or love or peace or gratitude or compassion or appreciation for somebody or something, then our heart is in a coherent state and our brain is the biggest beneficiary of that. It's hard to say. It's early in the morning here.
Absolutely. This is actually, I don't know if it's revolutionary because we should be having a lot more awareness of sometimes less logic is not a bad thing. Sometimes when people go into these crazy states of when they say out of body experience, I imagine they're a lot more aware of their innate ability to feel wholesomeness. I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly, but
Oh, it's perfect.
how do we allow to get into that state more in a less resistant way? Because look, I've got a phone, I've got an iPad, I've got a camera, I've got a light, I've got 17 people waiting to argue with me outside, I've got bills to pay. What's step one? Think of it as like, I don't know, Alcoholics Anonymous. Like step one is I need to just accept that I need to change or whatever it is. Do you have a framework when you work with people on that level?
I have a yes, yes.
But don't reveal too much because I hear you're coming to the UK when again?
For the chiropractor from the Heart Workshop. That's the 18th and 19th of April
18th and
in
19th of April.
in Milton, Keynes. We're gonna study roundabouts. When I mention Milton Keynes, everybody mentions roundabouts. I haven't been there, but so
18th and 19th of April.
yes.
Okay, great. I'll make sure we put that on the show notes
Well,
because,
thank you.
of course, people need to understand that there's so much more than I'm the systems guy and the KPIs guy, but most people will just have like a panic attack when we talk about numbers, and it's not the most inspiring. So we need a lot more people like you to to teach us. But anyways,
Well,
going back to
thank you.
the practical stuff, which is
Nothing wrong with numbers, but yes, let's make them the effect, not the cause.
absolutely,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
So what do we do?
S-
What's step one to have more coherence and to be more
And this
aware?
step one comes from Zen Buddhism, which the key phrase in Zen Buddhism is not necessarily so. So the first step is to start questioning our own thoughts, our own what I call a movie, because that's what's going on.
A
It's like there's
narrative.
a movie. Yeah, there's a narrative, there's a story going on in our head all the time, right? The story is just rehash mostly. It's mostly just reruns of old shows and old stories we've told ourselves. So, and those stories might have been very, very, very valuable and very accurate when we were 2 years old, but they're probably not so congruent for who we are now. Like I had a story about people pleasing, for instance. I was a people pleaser. I was a people pleaser extraordinaire for most of my life, right?
Would
And
you
so
say, honestly, would you say you no longer are, or you're just a lot less?
I am definitely no law. I mean, I still please people because I'm still a kind person, but I don't please. Okay. I've learned to be kind instead of nice.
Hmm. Tell people what
Nice to
they need to
me
hear.
was what I used to be was yes, was being like a chameleon and just negating conflict, especially when it's directed at me. And yeah, just doing whatever was appropriate to ease conflict or please people. So in other words, I was doing it at my own expense. Kind is different. Kind includes me. And really the only practical shift I made in that regard was including me in my choices for, for what was good and right for me. So that's just an example, a slight change of story. So I started to question. So one of the things I would realize when I was people pleasing or when I was about to people please was I would get this sensation in my solar plexus, which I knew was conflict. And, the first time I got that probably was when my mom, when I was, again, 2 or 3 years old, said something like, "Oh, just wait till your father comes home." Right. And,
Mm,
and I get this pit in my solar plexus, and I learned pretty quickly that if I hide in my room, my mom will probably forget after she's had her second or third martini, and I would escape getting whipped, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then 40 years later, I'm in my office doing the same thing.
That's
If
crazy.
somebody comes in and says, "I just want my neck adjusted because I get a headache, and every 6 months I just go somewhere and he adjusts me, and I don't want to know what you do here, and I don't want to, I don't want to know anything. I just want to get banged on the side of the neck, right?" And I get this pit, and the interesting thing is, this is Monday morning, and I just came back from a seminar that I told myself I'm going to tell the story come hell or high water. That's another Sisyphus expression. And, if they like it, fine. If they don't like it, fine. And I have this dynamic, beautiful intention. And this is the first guy on Monday. And I buckle under right away because I've spent my whole life paying attention to this pit in my solar plexus, and I know exactly how to get rid of it.
And what changed?
Monty Python said it well. Run away. And I can't hide. I can't run away. The guy's in my face, but I could do the next best thing and do exactly what he wants, right? And then
Yeah,
I do exactly what he wants, and then I go back in my office and I say, "Stu, you piece of shit. Excuse me.
so good.
You had this amazing intention and you didn't even make it through one person." And so I realized that I was doing that for years, and all I was doing was making it much more likely that I would make the same choice again. So I started to question it, and I use a tool that I learned from one of my greatest teachers, whose name was Dick Santo, Richard Santo, DC, who was part of the team that taught the gathering, which was Sigafoos's workshop. So he was good friends with Sigafoos, part of the original team. And he said, when you get that feeling, say you love it. So I started to say, I love this feeling, which I know now activated my heart. I would send the feeling love. I didn't like it, but I would say, I love this feeling. And sometimes I would, if I felt resistance around loving the feeling, I would remind myself, hey, this feeling has kept me alive. This feeling is my innate intelligence that I convinced when I was 2 years old to give me this message to keep me safe and to keep me alive in this world. And it was the best I could do when I was two, but I can do better now. And the amazing thing is, when I love the feeling goes away. And when I don't have to pay attention to the feeling anymore, when I don't have to give this my attention, I can give this my attention. I could give attention to my intention, which was, oh, yeah, I'm going to tell the story no matter what. So it's like, okay, sir, I hear what you're saying. If you would like to come back and hear what we do, I'm happy to have you do that. If you only want what you're asking for, I'm happy to send you to somebody down the road who would do that for you. What do you say? And it's like flipping easy, but it's impossible until I deal with the pit, until I deal with the story that I have told myself my entire life. So that's my first step, even though it's about 3 steps. Question it. Have a strategy in mind because it's coming. It's coming. Those thoughts are coming. We can wish they don't come. We could beat ourselves up for when they come, or we can have a strategy ready to go when they come. Because I don't know about you or any of your listeners, but I deal a lot better with invited guests than I do with uninvited guests. And I deal a lot better when I'm ready than when it takes me by surprise every single time. So that's a good example, I think, of the first steps.
I love that. And of course, people, this is one of those episodes I think people have to rewatch and re-listen. I know I will because every time I listen to a guest that has been on the show 2 or 3 times, the same sentence is received in a very different way.
Mm,
Can I share a quick story with you?
absolutely.
I don't know how you would interpret it, but when I was 17 years of age, so just about to go to university, and I was this is going to sound terrible. People can judge. It's fine. I don't want to be liked anymore. I I used to think I was a good-looking bloke, had the attention from girls, and one morning I wake up. I've not shared this story actually before, but one morning I wake up and I had a toothache, and I went to the dentist and they said, "I'm not sure. We're going to send you for some scans. I think it's infected." It was nothing to do with my tooth. Turns out I had this huge tumor that was growing in
Mm,
my right mandible, and my good looks disappeared within 3 months, which was just about the time that I had to go to university and meet
mm,
hundreds of new people as a teenage young boy.
wow.
My this side of my jaw was out here, and it completely crushed me, and it completely changed me. And I had to tell a story. The story was no one's gonna like me. I'm never be the same again. My looks were everything. So I had to work on my personality and this and this and this. And then I had this like multiple surgeries, but the last one was the external one where they chopped it off and reshaped it. But that was for 5 years. That was a
Wow.
transformation for 5 years. So every single time I would approach a new person, I would get a horrible feeling here.
Mm,
And in order for me to tell my heart or my brain, or I'm not sure what it was, I had to look in the mirror to remind myself that I look normal again
mm,
and then initiate the conversation. So, in a
mhm,
way, I very much relate to what you're saying. Mine was just much more
mm.
in my face, pun that intended.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, these stories, they just get so familiar that they're like bedtime stories. They we kind of just go right to sleep.
But some
or
people
live out
choose
the
to
same thing.
rewrite it. Some people choose to
Yeah.
analyze the narrative and question it. So I'm so glad that you said step one typically is question stuff.
Hmm.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, I have a question to ask you.
Okay.
I've been reading your blog and website and checking a couple of things out, and some of the clients that you've worked with call it the stew effect. What do they refer to? I need to know.
Well, first of all, I really like the term mostly because it hasn't been any of my clients that have coined that term. It's been their partners. It's been their significant others who have noticed the stew effect on it just a sense of peace. I think is the quick way to answer that question. Stew effect. Stew effect tends to be peaceful, tends to be heartful. So
Yeah, I like that.
So, you know, clients are sometimes ready to bail out on the coaching, but their partners make them continue because they want the stew effect to continue. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but I think it's probably happened.
I have something to read you, um,
Okay.
and I'll share this with you on the podcast, and I'm sure you don't mind. But your lovely significant other, your wife, this is her sentence, her phrase, not yours. But she's kindly said, I have listened to Stu give hundreds of talks at seminars, and whilst teaching workshops together, I'm always inspired. Even when I hear the same talk, it's different because Stu authentically and vulnerably shares from his wisdom, from his heart, and what's alive in him for that day and that moment. And it's as if he's talking to my secret heart, and there is an instant connection. My whole soul responds. I have watched him have the same effect on thousands of listeners, coaching clients, and workshop attendees. What a lovely
Wow.
thing to say.
That is a beautiful thing to say. I might have to thank her for that.
You might,
Yeah, yeah, that's lovely. Yeah.
and
Wow.
it's so amazing. I mean, I don't know about your personal life, but I don't know how long we've been together, but it's so amazing to see a partner so supportive and so appreciative of the work you do. Have you guys been together for a while?
Well, we got married in 1980.
Before I was born, without revealing my
We
age.
actually just celebrated 50 years of knowing each other in the biblical sense, shall we say.
Sure, sure, sure.
So it took a few more years to get married, but yeah, 76 is when we hooked up, so to speak. So yeah, she's been my partner in everything. She was my partner in the chiropractic practice, though she's not a chiropractor, and not a licensed chiropractor. She's definitely an honorary chiropractor. Um, yeah, and then we kind of left practice to go into an interfaith ministry thing here locally, and we did that together. We both became interfaith ministers, and yeah, and now she teaches the workshops, the chiropractic from the heart workshops with me. So yeah, we've been working together, playing together, partners in life and in crime, as we say, for a long time.
Love
Yeah.
that.
And
And
she has heard hundreds of my talks. My God, I feel sorry for her sometimes, but apparently it's okay.
no, it was a lovely, lovely message. And you can tell it comes from, again, pun unintended, it comes from the heart. I have a question. You guys ran a practice for like what, 2 decades?
24 years we
24 years.
ran
Wow.
it, yes.
And you ran I need to understand this, a donation only practice. Am I right in saying that?
For the last 12 years of our practice, we had a box. Well, people probably have heard of box on the wall. Our box wasn't on the wall. Our box was on the back of the front desk. But so it's kind of too long to say box on the back of the front desk. So yes, we had a box practice, which we had told people what our fees had been prior, just to give them some idea. But yeah, they paid the most they could. Um, did that for the last 12 years of our practice, and we adopted that philosophy in all areas of our life. So we still, like for our workshops, we have suggested fees, but we'll, always say that if the most you could pay is less than that, no one will be turned away or judged. That's usually the line we use. So yeah, we just made a deal with the universe years ago that if we give away our gifts in that way, give ourselves away in that way, we know we'll be taken care of, and that's been pretty much how our lives have played out. So
That's amazing. I can think of I can think of two responses, especially if you're on a practice. One is that's amazing and beautiful. The other one is
you're crazy.
no, I was going to say terrifying. That's terrifying. What do you say to both of those responses? Because obviously you've
I
had the experience of running it.
I lived through both of those. Well, first of all, I had heard people like Reggie Gold talk about the box on the wall kind of practice, and I liked it. And I really liked the idea of it, but mostly what I liked about it was the fact that I wouldn't have to deal with money or ask people for money. And besides being a people pleaser, I also had a tremendous lack consciousness that I have overcome as well. Had to probably do with my levels of deserving and the stories I told myself around that. So the box sounded like a great way to go. I just don't have to deal with it at all. So
Ah, so
I'm really glad I did not switch over to the box then. I didn't do that until I had gone to on two another subject, two chiropractic missions to Panama. I went on the first four missions to Panama, and I don't know if you've heard about the Panama missions, but they were incredible. The first one, 18 of us adjusted 46,000 people in 5 days. The second time, 90 something of us adjusted 200,000 people in 5 days. And then the third time, 147 chiropractors descended upon the poor nation of Panama. We're in every town in Panama with 5,000 people or more. Literally, we saw like 385,000 people in the course of 5 days.
I've got goosebumps.
But I came back from the second mission saying, why am I going to Panama and practicing chiropractic and then going home and doing all this shit,
Mm.
this selling and convincing and I mean, the cool thing about Panama, especially for me, was my Spanish was next to non-existent. Their English was completely non-existent. So we were forced, especially since there's 5,000 people waiting in line and you don't have a lot of time to spend with people. You were forced, or I was forced, or I chose to use these circumstances to connect with people on a level that I'd never had before. And
Wow.
I have to say that there was more love exchanged between me and these people than any time in my practice, even though I would spend a lot of time with people and talk to people and find out all about their problems and send them right into the physiology I was trying to change by doing that anyway. I don't know if you caught that, but we can talk about that later too. But yeah, so I came back from the second one. I said, well, one of the things I can do is remove the money attachment because obviously there was none there in Panama, even though people did not, let's say, they still honored the law of exchange. They didn't pay us anything, but they brought us food, they brought us lottery tickets, they waited for hours. I mean, I don't know if you can picture this, but you show up at 9 o'clock, which is when we were supposed to show up. And here's a country where nothing starts on time. It's all Latin time, as they say, right?
Yeah.
But we're on time and they're early, man. They've been lining up for hours just after the first few days because the word got out. I don't know how, but
Yeah,
the
because
word
back
got
then there
around.
was no social media, there's no
There was TV, and the organizers had high level government contact, so there was advertisement on TV. I don't know how many of these people had TVs though, so I think the majority of people were finding out a different way. But yeah, I mean, I adjusted on the fourth mission 2,000 people myself in 5 hours. They told me, and we're not guessing on these numbers because we had high level government help. They provided the venues and they also provided volunteers, and some of them were people were signing in. So we were like counting, and then of course it was way more than that because when we would try to leave, we'd be just waiting for a bus or something, and people would show up. and we'd sit them down on a concrete slab or something and adjust them, right?
Fantastic.
So yeah, it was incredible experiences. It was the purest experience I had up to that point of things like loving, serving, and giving for the sake of loving, serving, and giving. And yeah, and so there was there where I was convinced. I had a certainty, even though I was scared. What was the second one you said? Fear? Yeah. I,
Terrifying.
I was scared, especially since my coach, Sigafus, said, you can't trust people these days, you know. And my mother was really nervous. And but I
But you
had
guys made
gotten
it
to the
work.
I had gotten to the point where I could not
Not
do
do
it.
it. Wow,
And
that's amazing.
my wife was very supportive, thankfully, which which held a lot of weight because it was obviously directly affecting her life. So yeah, and we lost a lot of people who, because we were still billing insurance to some degree at that point. Uh, but quickly we started seeing bigger numbers than we ever did, and I managed to eat and travel and buy some clothes occasionally, stuff like that. So yeah, it was an awesome thing to do.
That's
It was
fantastic.
very freeing. It was very wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, I loved it.
My biggest fear would be, and this is just the limiting belief for myself, which you've kind of proven me wrong already, but my biggest limiting belief would be, well, how much would people value the service you provide? But I'm sure in reality, it's not how it was.
I guess with some people it's probably true, but we did I know people hear me speak and they say, "Oh, it must be nice just to show up and have fun and love people and adjust people." And that's essentially all I did. But we definitely had protocols. We definitely had procedures that allowed me to do that, right? And education was a huge part of our procedures. So and we had a pre-care mandatory talk. So before you ever got adjusted, you heard why it might be a good idea to get adjusted, and then we had a minimum commitment for people who wanted to use the box and stuff. So it it all worked out really well, and it felt good to us to be congruent
Yeah,
with
yeah,
our beliefs at that point and to give people, and I had a lot of single moms with 6 kids, and I know I still had a bit of a lack consciousness, which probably affected things, but that's what I wanted. That's what I asked for, and that's what we got. So
that,
yeah, we took care of lots of people.
thank you so much for sharing. I actually think whether people adopt this or not, it's less relevant. What's more relevant is the the diversity in how people operate in this world and what's out there. And actually, my next question, we have probably 5, 10 minutes left, and I have a feeling you'll be one of those guests that, if okay with you, we have to do a part two at some point in the future.
Absolutely.
Because we can talk for hours and hours and hours. But I actually, every single time I've interviewed someone great, someone with heaps of experience and knowledge, I ask them this question, and I'm looking for commonalities, but you don't know what other people have said in the past, so that's okay. But you've obviously spent time with some of the greatest. You've spent time with some amazing chiropractors. What would you say is the difference between what separates those who are good versus those who are extraordinary, those who are great at what they do?
That's a really good question. Yeah, and again, I'm channeling Sigafus here today, and he used to ask us, why 2 guys graduate from the same class and set up in the same town and use the same technique, and one of them succeeds and the other one doesn't. So, I think we've touched on a lot of the things that make somebody great, and that's certainty, and not necessarily certainty from the outside in, but certainty from the inside out. People who have cleared enough of their own interference between their heads and their hearts, where somebody could walk into their presence, and that starts the healing process. Um, yeah, those who have I say done
Certainty.
the work, even though I don't really like work. Applied the blissipline is how I like to put it. Applied the blissipline to clearing out their own crap so they can be there and be present. Present is one of the key elements I think that makes for greatness. Presence, you know, presence for them, presence for both. Like
Hmm.
I had this pre-adjusting routine where I visualized a field of light that eventually, they started from my heart, but eventually included both of us, and nothing existed outside of that field of light except for that person in front of me. Nobody else exists. This is what I learned in Panama. This is one of the
Mm.
skills I brought back from Panama because it's hard in Panama. It's like 90,000 degrees. It was hot. We were sweaty. It was noisy. It was, kids are grabbing my leg and pulling my shirt. And I loved it. I just absolutely loved it because, again, for the first time, I seemed to be able to, all that was just part of the moment. And I was just so there. So, yeah, presence, certainty, love, obviously. I mean, it's an old cliche about loving our patients, but and I have to say, people say, well, what does that mean? Um, I can tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't necessarily mean having to like them all. Uh, loving to me is not intense liking. Loving is our most natural expression. Loving, loving is a recognition of our sameness, of our oneness. And even though I might have things about this person that I judge, if I thought really deeply, I could probably say the same things about myself to some degree, right? So yeah, these kind of
Well,
aspects I think are part of the answer
I think it's
to your
brilliant.
question.
And I sometimes think it's better for the listeners and the audience to take away one thing from today and truly start to work on it rather than having 74 different bullet points that they can think about. So I definitely think we have to do a part two. Stu, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your
You're
wisdom and
so welcome.
information for the last hour or so. And I'm just going to remind the audience I am not in the country on those dates, which is I think I messaged you prior to that. I would have 100% been attending your workshop, but it's the 18th and 19th of
Another
April.
time in Milton Keynes, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Um, you'll be putting links, so it's there's a Facebook event. It's called Chiropractic from the Heart in Buckinghamshire. Buckinghamshire.
Okay.
No, maybe, yeah, I believe that's correct. There's also one we're doing in Barcelona the weekend before, so that would be the 11th and 12th of April.
11th of 12th. And where can people find out more about these events? I'll put the link, but is it the uh, bitmanbliss.com?
They could find them on there. I think if I've remembered to tell my social media person about them, but they're definitely on Facebook. Um, or just email me, or yeah, just contact me.
Sure.
I'll send you the link. There's a PDF I have of for people who are not on Facebook that has the information on how to register. But
Brilliant. Yeah, we'll
yeah,
definitely try to do that because um, people are probably sick and tired of me talking about systems and business and procedures. And I think there is something missing, which is what you were talking about. So I'm sure the audience will love to explore this further. Thank you so much, sir, for being on the show and really
thank
appreciate it.
you. I had a lot of fun, and I tremendously appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
All
Take
right,
care,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you very much for listening and watching. That's the show.